Hey guys, Sam here with D-Life HD, and today we're going to be talking about our first impressions of Halo Infinite's campaign. Well, let's dive right into it. We covered Halo Infinite's multiplayer in a separate video, and yes, I have played about 50 hours of the multiplayer, so I'm very familiar with it, but today we're going to be talking about the campaign, which released later. Actually, the multiplayer came out a little bit early, so everybody was diving into that, but the campaign just dropped on December 8th, and I am about 50% of the way through it. I have done a variety of side missions, main missions, and just exploring around and messing with the physics, and man, let me tell you, this is a very fun game. That is absolutely without question. It is a very fun game, but how does it hold up as a Halo game? Well, after Halo 4 being somewhat of a controversial title, and then Halo 5 being pretty much universally hated by the Halo community, now I know there were some people that liked it, but there was definitely a lot of outcry from the community. Well, a lot of people were hoping that 343 Industries would return to the roots of the Halo series with Halo Infinite, and that was their promise. I would say they have delivered on that. Now, there are still a lot of room for improvements, which hopefully, given the model of this game being a constantly live and updated game, these issues will be ironed out over time. But we'll go into some of those things today. We'll talk about how this captures the magic of the original Halo and what it needs to do to maybe improve itself a little bit. Well, let's start off with some positives. First of all, the look. While the graphics aren't exactly next gen, the look of this game is so in line with the original Halo games. The art style is just great, honestly. I love what they've done going back to that original art style of kind of a cartoony but still very grounded world. You've got the ring, obviously. Master Chief is on the Zeta Halo, which is very nostalgic to the first Halo. And you've got all the classic armors and vehicles and weapons back in their original designs. Some of them started to look a little bit different with Halo 4, so it is absolutely great to see these original designs back, especially Master Chief's armor. It took a drastic change in the design in Halo 4, but it is back to looking just as cool as it did in Halo 1, 2, and 3. The vehicles are another huge emphasis of the Halo series, and they are back in full force. We've got, of course, the Warthog, but we've also got the Razorback, the Mongoose. Haven't really encountered a lot of aerial vehicles yet in my playthrough, but there have been plenty of banished vehicles, which is the bad guys, and some of their aerial vehicles are a lot of fun to play around in, like the Ghosts. Those are so much fun. There is a lot that is in common with the first Halo game with this. I think if you ever played the original Halo, you get that second mission, and you step out onto the ring, and it's just a giant sprawling world. Now, in reality, it's not as big as you might remember, but there's still plenty of room to get lost and explore around and drive vehicles. It's just like a massive sandbox. Well, 343 Industries has kind of like made this game feel like what you remember the first Halo feeling like. Basically, you're going to end up in this giant world where you can just explore and explore and explore without any limitations. Now, eventually you'll hit some invisible walls, sadly, and there will be areas that you can't get to, and the world is actually a little more segmented than you might originally realize. They actually haven't called it an open world, but it is definitely far more open than some of the more linear missions of the past. But, good news, there are still missions in the sense of the original Halo games where you'll have the linear missions. Those are still there. See, here's how it works. You will enter a mission. It'll be kind of a linear experience. You'll go from hallways to big open rooms and battling enemies. And then you'll end up in this big open world where you can do all kinds of side missions. You can find upgrades. You can recruit Marines. And all of that is completely optional. If you want, you can just walk directly to the next mission and go about your business without doing any upgrading or recruiting any Marines. But you'll be missing out on one of the most fun additions to the game, and that is building your party, finding new weapons, equipping your Marines, and then going out and repeating it all over again. It's a ton of fun. I will say it can feel a little bit jerky going from side missions to main missions. I had played the first 2 missions or so and then just gone absolutely nuts exploring the world. When I finally went to the third mission, it was a little bit jarring to be pulled back into the story all of a sudden. And the game will definitely try to push you along on that path by constantly reminding you, hey, you might want to go check out the main mission. You'll have plenty of reminders, but it's not too jarring. It's definitely a little jarring to be going from this big open world into some linear hallways and missions and stuff, but it's not too bad. I think it's pretty much the best that it could be. Now, as far as the variety on display, that I think is one of my biggest disappointments. There's pretty much 2 kinds of areas: underground sci-fi looking hallways and above ground grassy areas. There's not a lot of, other areas. In the multiplayer, we saw a variety of maps, but none of that is really on display in the campaign, which is unfortunate. In the original games, we did all kinds of different areas. We had like snow areas, beach areas, and that was just in the first game. And then the second game brought in cityscapes, and then the third game had huge like desert highways. There was just all kinds of different environments. So sadly, none of that is really going to be in the campaign of Halo Infinite, at least as far as I can tell from the first half. Now, hopefully, in the future expansions, they will add areas like that, and I'm very hopeful for that. But unfortunately, not a lot of variety. But that is absolutely okay, because what is there is a lot of fun to play around in and explore. Now let's talk about combat, because obviously combat is a huge part of the series. The very first game was called Combat Evolved. So let's see. Has combat continued to evolve with the series? Absolutely. I feel like this game takes a lot of pages out of Doom Eternal's handbook. Not necessarily intentionally, since they were being developed at the same time, but you got the main new feature, which is the grapple shot. It allows you to shoot out a grapple, and you can use it to grapple items into your hands, weapons. You can grapple onto enemies. You can grapple up ledges. It's essentially what climbing did for Breath of the Wild. It's for Master Chief. He can grapple up the side of a mountain, or he can grapple a enemy. And one of the coolest upgrades later on is you unlock this grapple punch, where you can grapple onto an enemy and then just punch him in the face. It's so cool. And it does like a meteor smash. That is really cool. I love the grapple feature. It all of a sudden makes you feel like, how did I ever play this without the grapple? I mean, you're getting attacked by an enemy. You can grapple away real quick. You're getting running out of ammo. You can grapple a weapon into your hand. You can grapple these new things called fusion coils that are just these little energy cells, I guess, on the ground that you can pick up and throw at enemies, and they'll just blow up. It's so cool. It is absolutely so cool. They've also added some other equipment items that you'll find along the way, and these include a shield that you can deploy in front of you, and a dash, which again is very similar to Doom Eternal, although it feels just slightly unnecessary given the fact that we have the grapple hook, which basically does the same thing, but I guess in the pinch, it is a little bit faster. The only problem is you're going to have to cycle through either the D-pad or your number keys to pull that up. So by the time you can do that, you might as well just grapple away. I don't know. I'm sure someone can explain that to me in the comments why that's useful, but it's still very cool. And then you also have the enemy detector. What's it called? Oh, maybe called like the pulse radar? I can't remember, but you shoot that thing out. Or maybe it's the sonar. Yeah, you shoot that thing out, and it will just alert you if enemies are nearby or hidden items. That's really cool. And to get away from combat for a second, speaking of hidden items, there are all kinds of hidden items in this game. Now, in the original Halo games, you would have been looking for the skulls, which are items that kind of change up your gameplay. So like infinite ammo, for instance. But in this game, there's plenty more to find in addition to that, which I really, really was a big fan of. There's audio logs to look for. There are cores, which will upgrade your armor or your equipment. And there are all kinds of other things to look for. It's really, really cool. I'm always a big fan of optional collectibles that expand on the story and your arsenal. And I'm really glad to see that implemented here. And again, that's completely optional. So if you want to just have the original Halo experience without any of that, you don't even have to worry about it. But I think it's totally worth going out of your way off the beaten path to look for some of that stuff. And some of that is just devilishly hidden. Not just that, there's actually a lot of Easter eggs hidden in the game, and I found a few of them so far. And several of them are actually just references to creations of the Halo community, which is absolutely amazing to be paying respect to your fans. So I'm a big fan of that. I love Easter eggs that actually don't even do anything. They're just fun secrets. It's very, very cool. You won't regret going out of your way to look for some of these things. I won't comment on story at the moment because the story, obviously, I haven't finished it. But I will say that with the characters, these characters feel very in line with Halo 1. Obviously, in Halo 4 and 5, some of the character development was controversial. And I can see 343 kind of trying to sweep that under the rug and start fresh, which is appreciated. It's really cool to see some of these characters acting more like their Halo 1 counterparts, and I really appreciate that because Halo 1 was a very simple, it was a deep story, but it was simple at the same time. I think anyone could really get into it, and it didn't try to act any more serious than it had to. The original Halo like had this perfect blend between humor and action and seriousness. And this game just really does a great job balancing all those elements. Some of the dialogue is hilarious. I have been cracking up at some of the dialogue, especially from the enemies, but the Marines too. The banter between them during battles is just so funny. Sometimes it's a little bit over the top, and not to ruin it for you, but the grunt enemies, their voices sound a little off. In the original game, they had these high-pitched voices that were obviously run through some filters, but it kind of sounds like in this game, someone's just doing their best impression of that without any filters. And as one of my friends so aptly put it, they kind of sound like toads, honestly, from Mario. Not a great thing to be compared to, but hey, if you try not to think about that, if you're just focusing on the funny dialogue, it's very funny. And the acting is solid. Definitely some solid acting. So yeah, all around, this is a great campaign so far, and I'm really looking forward to finishing it. I mean, every day I've been just counting down the minutes till I could get back on and play, which is not something I can say has been the case in a long time. And with the very fun multiplayer and this amazing campaign, I'd say you get a pretty good bang for your buck. I mean, I know that the multiplayer is free, but, you know, there's other factors like time. And I will definitely say that I've sunk several hours into both of these combined, and it has been a blast. And the last thing I want to comment on before we wrap the video up is performance. I will say, on PC, this game runs like a dream, although it does seem to be somewhat held back. There are a few features that are missing that we'd like to see. We'll comment more on that in our full review later down the line, but on Xbox Series, this thing is obviously just like a dream because it was absolutely enhanced by those consoles running at very high resolutions, high frame rates. You can definitely pick between those depending on which console you have, and that is great. And even on Xbox One, this thing is running really well. Now, some people might be mad at that because obviously, like I said earlier, the graphics aren't anything to be, I don't know, they're not too great. So obviously Xbox One may have held back this game a little bit, which is unfortunate. But I will say it's much appreciated being able to play on an older console because sadly some people just haven't had a chance to upgrade to the newer consoles due to the shortages and the high prices. And so I will say that's actually really appreciated being able to play sort of wherever you want, whether that be on an older console, a newer console, or PC. And I've definitely been playing across all three of those. So it's been really fun. And I love being able to just pick up and play wherever I am at the moment. And I think that is going to do it for this initial impressions. I know it's been all over the place, but that's sort of how these go. What do you guys think of Halo Infinite's campaign? Are you having a great time with it? I hope you are. Absolutely. Let us know what your experience is in the comments below. And until next time, always stay one up, Spartans. Peace out.